Before I start, I just want to talk a little bit about Bill's openers today at TTF. So Bill talked about the fact that during the pandemic, 1.5 million people lost their job, and they move on for better things in life. I'm sure there are a lot of people in this room, including me. We are quite blessed and grateful to still have our jobs, right? Not that we are deadwood in the industry. I love what I've been doing, and I get to do this, over the years, talking to young, successful owners and industry leaders. And today, sitting next to me, I have Kun Prao from Prao Group and Prao Real Estate. So she has not been doing too much or too few. I'm going to need to look at the list here. She only owns 3 intercontinental properties in Hua Hin, in Phuket, and also the Intercon Residences Hua Hin. She owns 2 Holiday Inn properties, 1 in Hua Hin, 1 in the making in Phuket, and also just 2 water parks. So, not a big achievement at all here. I kind of know that you are sort of an ex-management consultant from McKinsey & Co. So now that we're sort of climbing out of the pandemic, slowly out, does that mean you can sort of let your guard down a little bit, and sort of take an easy ride that, the market is recovering? Or do you still operating in a crisis mode and have so many versions of business plans?
Well, thank you, Kunikom, and welcome. I'm so happy to be here, honestly, and thank you very much for that introduction. First of all, I'd like just to touch upon the comment you made earlier and how grateful you are to have your job still. I am as well. Luckily, I work for my family, and hopefully they don't fire me anytime soon. Coming back to the pandemic, I think you hear earlier from the bigger brands and the bigger company. I think for us, we are still largely, family-owned. We're still a mid-sized company, I would say. During the pandemic, what we saw was that a lot of our cash reserve was burned out, especially during the lockdown. A lot of it was going towards helping our employees and just supporting them during the pandemic. Coming out of it, obviously you heard just now things are looking up. And obviously with China reopening, that's obviously a big plus as well. But I think for us, there's still a lot of uncertainties around hotel investments. And I think, especially with, you see a huge supply coming into the market, demand has not yet fully recovered. And I think a lot of Thai hotel owners, they also do other businesses. So what you see, or at least for us, when we were to consider a new hotel investment, it is also a question of where you best put your money, whether it's still within the hotel industry. Land costs, obviously, has been rising. During the pandemic, we were hoping that we would be able to get some amazing deals, something in a really good location at an amazing price, but nothing came out of it. Or actually, if there was anything on the market, somebody in this room probably snapped it up before I did. So we didn't see any of that. So going forward, I think, more or less we're taking a bit of a neutral gear. We are focusing on just readjusting our existing portfolio at the moment. We just opened the Intercontinental Phuket 2020, literally 2 weeks before COVID came. And then we also just opened the Andamanda Water Park back in May this year. So right now, we just really looking to capitalizing on the recovery of the Phuket market. And another thing, I think just now, from the SDR data, what was really interesting is that, I think you're starting to see a pivoting point whereby hotels who were doing well during the pandemic, Hua Hin especially was leading the recovery, with the Rao Tia Doi Kan campaign from the government. We were just sitting there, and actually things were even better to some extent than 2019. Coming out of it, obviously you see a big stock in recovery between Hua Hin and Phuket. International destinations generally, I think, will do a lot better.
That's a great point, and you touch upon the fact that, some of the destinations in Thailand are doing extremely well, like Hua Hin, and also the point about, luxury and upper upscale products are leading the recovery journey. So does that sound kind of like too good to be true? And, does that concern you at some point that, this may not last forever?
Well, I think looking in the short run, of course, things, especially this year, 2023, things always going to be better than the last year because it can really get any worse. But I think on a bigger scale, there are a lot of threats for Thailand tourism. There are new destinations coming up within the region. Even Phuket, we are now competing, I think, with the newer destinations like in Vietnam or some other places. The other thing I think is the people. We've heard a lot about it, and what you see now, especially in Thailand, is we also seeing a lot of labor shortages. An interesting comparison I would like to make is, obviously if you look at Singapore, facing the same issues with labor shortages, rate is very high, but also for some reason, customer expectations in Singapore are a lot lower than the customers in Thailand coming to check in at our hotels. People still expecting the same level of services. They are now used to the government subsidy, and therefore, at least for the domestic consumers, they're not willing to pay as high as they were. So how do you deal with that when obviously demand hasn't fully covered to pre-pandemic level? You have rising costs, electricity, you have to retain people, and therefore wages are on the rise. Yes.
Yeah, every coin has two sides, right? There's so much optimism about Thailand hospitality as one of the, great places to be in. But then, we are all faced with challenges. And then you bring up very good points about labor, labor shortages, labor costs. Last year we've seen a minimum wage hike at the end of the year. So does that keep you awake at night? Are you sort of concerned that, a lot of new hotels in the pipeline would soon snap your people away from you?
Yeah, I mean, it's happening, but I think, that's nothing related to the pandemic necessarily. I think people, honestly, hospitality people have always been a little bit fickle. They tend to move from property to property anyway. So yes, it is keeping me awake at night, but not more so than before.
And how do you retain staff? How do you also find a way to attract, star performers or, early risers?
I think being part of an international brand helps a lot of people. Obviously, if they do come into hospitality, they want to be able to work for the big brands, right? But I think more and more also we need to start treating the people who work at the hotel as our own employees and not just an employee of the brand. I think ultimately what we're seeing coming out of COVID, one of the trends is, people are expecting a more localized, more unique experiences. And therefore, I think brands will start to move from being sort of the attracting factor to just being assurances. It's still a necessity. People still coming to the hotel because of the brand. But over time, it will become more of a basic requirement. Honestly, having 8 different type of pillows or how big your bathroom are, that's not a good enough reason for somebody to fly halfway across the world to your property anymore. And therefore, I think you need your people to be able to deliver those unique experiences which go above and beyond the brand. And also, I think a point towards attracting talent, I think you need to be able to give them space to make them feel that they are creating an impact within the hotel. They no longer just a part of the machine that runs with or without them, but they want to be able to make a difference in some ways.
Okay, that's great. There's another point that I want to touch on here is the utility. And, we all know that utility costs keeps increasing and, a lot of your properties have already been built, the structure is up. So how do you deal with, all these energy issues? How do you keep the utility in check?
Yeah, I don't think we do anything different than the other hotels. Obviously, it's all about your LED lighting. And one of the things that we did, because our property, one of our property, especially the Intercon in Hua Hin, is quite old. We're getting into our 12th year now. I think in the past, during a good year, it's actually very hard to do any major renovation or any capex replacement because obviously that disrupt and displace your revenue. I think we took the opportunity to do major renovation to our M&E. We just replaced the chiller, and that allows us to be a lot more efficient with our energy use.
Okay, well, that's a really good use of time, right, during the crisis, and you actually, do something with your back of house in M&E. Well, I guess we're coming to the end of this session, but before we wrap up, just want to talk a little bit about, new projects, new constructions, and obviously you have something in the pipeline, and material costs has been on the rise, logistics issues. How do you manage all of those to make sure that you really control the upfront initial cost outlays?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just coming down to, planning in advance. If you look at material costs, actually, yes, it's been on the rise, but it has dropped quite a bit. If you were to look at quarter on quarter, the baht is significantly stronger these days. And I look at those opportunities to actually lock in some of the prices, especially the imported materials. I think the other thing is, with rising costs, sometimes you just have to live with the fact that things are going to be more expensive. So how do you make your investment still, sound? The flip side of that is you need to be able to find more revenue, rather than, for example, ADR is obviously a big thing. We heard a lot of the people earlier talk about ADR, but I also just like to make a point about this total revenue spent within the hotel. Besides the bed and the bathroom or just the room in itself, there's also room to increase revenue from F&B and other kind of spending as well. So within our hotels, actually one of the big themes right now is just renovating our restaurants. Not only that it would increase your total revenue for the hotel, but also I think it plays a big part in creating a unique experiences for your consumers.
Yeah, I think, one thing that I have observed, coming out of the pandemic is people are going for new experiences. It's all about experiential consumption, whether it's experiential dining, experiential travel, and I guess if you can offer that, then you're just gonna ride on a trend. So I just want to wrap up this chat today with something I have actually observed from Kun Prao's story. So in the past, when people in Thailand go to water park, the water park always sit on top of the shopping mall, and you just pay 50 baht, 100 baht to be a part of that, and to get into the mall. Then I sort of saw this story that Kun Prao and your family, you want to build a water park at a global scale that charge 1,000 baht. So something really unprecedented in the market. So it sort of made me think, why we must actually do something that already exists in the market. If we build based on what already performed well in the market, does that mean we are assuming that the history will just repeat itself? The world is constantly changing, and the hotel market as well. So I think, we just need to find the right gap, the right opportunity, and like what you do, you maximize the market potential and fill in that gap. Well, thank you very much, Kun Prao, for today's chat.
Thank you very much, Kun Yong. Thank you.